Hello and welcome to Sunday Run Day, the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see that I am in fact back in my home in Melbourne after mine and Cara's trip to Europe to carry out the Iceland Volcano Marathon. Now, like I mentioned last week, I would just like to say again, a big thank you to everyone involved in the Iceland Volcano Marathon. They made it super special for us and we had such an incredible time. We met so many incredible athletes and runners out there and just incredible human beings. It was so good to be around them and to hear their stories. As I said, I love to hear people's running stories. I love to hear how far people have come on their journey and where they're heading to next and all the things they've done. So for me, it was an amazing time to meet these people and share some time with them and definitely hear some amazing stories that over the time I really do hope to share. Hope to have some of the people on the show. It'd be really cool to evolve the podcast and get some more people on the show so you can listen to them and not only just listening to me. But as I said, we're back now here in Melbourne after our trip to Europe, and what better way than coming back to Melbourne than, of course, carrying out an event. Now, we're lucky that we had Run Melbourne this weekend. It is an event that is extremely close to our heart, that we do love Run Melbourne. Now, we try to carry out Run Melbourne every year if we can. Sometimes it might not quite work for us, but we've been pretty fortunate that we've been able to carry out enough Run Melbournes. So this week I definitely want to talk a little bit about Run Melbourne. It's been a really cool event over the years for us and something that has just really evolved in Clara's running journey, but also a little bit of mine as well. So as I mentioned with Run Melbourne, when I was talking about Clara's story, that was her first event when she came to Australia. So that's why I hold that special place in our heart, I guess. You know, she carried out the 10K the first year, and then the second year she carried out the half marathon, and so much so now she's carried out multiple half marathons. So I'm super proud of Clara for the progress she's made, and I'll get into that afterwards. But I'll talk a little bit about the run and talk about my run as well today. So to start with, it is very early in the morning, and Run Melbourne is Melbourne's biggest winter running event. And when I say winter, it certainly felt like winter this morning. It was very cold out there, bright and early. We got there around about 5:30 in the morning and got ourselves ready for a 6:30 start. So it was dark, it was cold. It's definitely not the start of the run that I'd like so much, being in the cold, but to be fair, I will say the conditions were really good out there today. Yes, it felt a little bit cold, but sometimes running in that colder weather can be a little bit more beneficial for you. And you definitely don't feel the cold as you run around. I certainly felt it before I started the run and definitely after, but it was really good conditions out there. So the run starts, and the first couple kilometers, it is actually quite challenging because there's a lot of people around, and you don't want to do a lot of weaving and ducking and diving between people. You kind of want to just get into a little bit of a routine and kind of get into your stride and not really worry too much about your pace. And I mentioned this to Clara at the start. So the first couple kilometers, don't worry too much about pace. There's a lot of people around. I think they mentioned it was around about 13,000 people carrying out the half marathon event today. So a lot of people around. So the first couple kilometers, it does kind of funnel neck down a little bit. It can be a little bit tricky, so don't worry about the pace, just get through it. Now for me, I was quite lucky. I got a little bit closer to the front and I managed to get into my pace relatively soon. So I was still being very, precautious to not, weave too much and not, jump in front of people and just kind of see how the flow went. But it went pretty good for me. And then it opens up, and then we get to run around some beautiful areas of Melbourne. And I think that's probably why I love Run Melbourne, is one of, my favourite events. It's because you do get to see a different side of Melbourne. It's bright and early in the morning. It's a little bit dark. There's no one on the streets other than us runners. And that's just really cool. Really surreal that you get to run around and see some of the sights. So if you haven't been to Melbourne before, or you don't know Melbourne so much, definitely check it out on the internet and just have a little look at some of the sites in Melbourne that we see. We get to run past Flinders Street Station, we get to do around the Botanical Gardens and out to Docklands as well, and some really cool areas, and it was a really good route. Now I will mention that the route has actually changed this year from previous years that we ran. And I think the changes were actually really good. I really liked them. I like the changes they made. It definitely made for a faster course. It's a little bit of elevation, but not a lot. And I think the changes they made definitely made for a faster course. So I think a few more people out there probably would have gone out and maybe try and run a couple personal bests, knowing that it was a bit of a flatter course. But it still got to see all the sights of Melbourne. And I really like that. So I got into my stride and enjoyed the run. And I will say that before I started the run today, I had no expectations. I kind of think we've just come back from Iceland. We're training for another marathon where Sunshine Coast Marathon is definitely something that I'm really excited for and trying to really hit my goal there. So I kind of thought today's run was about really just enjoying the event. It's such a well-organised event. As I say, so cool to run around the city. So it's about just enjoying it. But of course I wanted to see how I feel. And my body felt pretty good to start with. And I kind of thought to myself, can I keep this pace up? And how long can I keep it up for? Is it a case I can only keep this pace up for, maybe 15, 16 kilometers? Or can I keep going all the way for 21 kilometers? Now, I was pretty lucky that I was able to keep my pace pretty well. And so much so, I managed to get myself my half marathon PB. Now, I was pretty shocked by that, to be honest. I didn't anticipate that. I kind of want to just go out there and enjoy the run. And primarily, number one, that's what I did. I went out there and I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. But then to get a PB on top of that for the half marathon, that was pretty cool. So pretty happy with that. But generally just happy with how I kept my pace and how I run out there. I really enjoyed the course. I really enjoyed seeing people out there on the course. The support on the course is great. The entertainment on the course is really good. So I think in general, Run Melbourne is just, a fantastic event. Super well organised. For me, the entertainment, I really do like that, especially just towards the end. Just we got about 300 metres, 200 metres until the finish line, and there's these Japanese drummers there that you can just hear them just drumming along and just to a lovely beat. It's just so cool. It gives you the little goosebumps as you kind of get to the finish line, and that was really cool. And I did see there was some people singing out on the course. I seen someone was out there on the bagpipes, so hats off to him for braving the cold and being out there and support and showing support to our runners, and also a lot of friends and family, I'm sure, out there on the course supporting their runners. And yeah, it was really good. Really great support out there, something we enjoyed. And I say Clara also carried out this event. And then for Clara, as I said, the reason why I think it's very close to her heart is because it was the first event she'd done in Melbourne, and it was her first half marathon as well. And going back to 2017, she had that goal of wanting to run her half marathon under 2 hours. And she didn't quite make it. She'd done 2:07. But just to show Clara's running journey and how much she's progressed and how much she's enjoying her running, then in the space of 7 years, which I think personally in a running journey is quite short, but in 7 years, she's now gone and run a 1 hour 31. Got her personal best today, ran super well, took off 36 minutes from her first half marathon all those years ago. So, I'm just impressed by it. I'm absolutely in awe of Clara's achievements. I just love to be a part of that. I'm so fortunate and lucky to see it firsthand and be there and just kind of see her hit these goals and have these amazing runs. And today she just ran super well. I super enjoyed to hear her story, and she said, yeah, she enjoyed the course as well. She said definitely the changes she preferred. But yeah, a little bit of a struggle towards the end. She really did push herself, and I think that's great. I think when you get to cross the finish line knowing that you pushed yourself, and not only did you get a great time, but you enjoyed it, what more can you ask for? And going back to that finish line bit, one thing I love about events is the finish line area. Now, I finished a little bit before Clara, so obviously I was waiting around the finish line and wanted to wait for Clara to come across, and looking at the time thinking she's probably not too far behind. So waiting around there. But what I love about waiting around there is seeing people's emotions as they cross the finish line. It is just filled with just amazing emotions. You never know these people's stories. Unless you talk to them or you know that person, you don't know their stories. But you can see their reaction and what it means to them. And I think half marathon distance is a really long way. There's people out there like myself that we would, competing in marathons and we're loving to do the marathon. But half marathon distance is also a really long way. For 21 kilometers, it's a long distance to be out there. But to see people's emotions as they cross the finish line is just amazing. And I'll go back. I remember this one lady, she crossed the finish line. And she looked down at her garment, and then she obviously was so happy with herself. I seen her give herself that fist bump and just the elation on her face that whatever was her goal today, she achieved it. Or she achieved something that she was super proud of. And I love that. There was this other gentleman that crossed the finish line, and his emotion just was pouring out. He was so happy. And as I say, you don't know their story. You don't know what why they're so emotional, but it's so cool to see, and I love to see that, and I love to see people just enjoying the run and just being so happy with it. So a great place for me to be and wait there for Clara and just to see some people cross the finish line. Now, it wasn't just me and Clara out there running. Obviously, I mentioned there's 13,000 people, but we were very fortunate that we had some other members from our gym out there running today. And that was super cool to share that moment with them as well. We got to see them at the finish line. So we had Max out there, we had Ryan, and we had Stuart. Now, we didn't get to see Stuart at the finish line. We left a little bit before Stuart come in, but we kind of looked around for him. But as I said, there was 13,000 people, so we didn't quite get the opportunity to catch up with Stuart there. We did catch up with Ryan and Max. Pretty fortunate to see them at the finish line there as they come through, but amazing stories for those two guys as well, and Stuart. So Max, it was his first half marathon, and I'll tell you now, the guy absolutely smashed it. He did not leave anything in his tank. He went out there and he smashed it. He done 1 hour 40 in his first ever half marathon. I'm super proud of him. You know, I've been able to be a part of a little bit of his journey of seeing him come to the gym and see his progression with his running, and really wanted to tackle, you know, longer distance running, and he's taken on the half marathon. And he smashed it today. It was great to meet up with him afterwards, and he was just saying that he was enjoying it. He felt good. He was a little bit worried about his legs. Maybe he might feel a little bit tiredness towards the end, but he said he got to that point where he just absolutely pushed himself. He was like, I'm not going to leave anything in the tank. I'm just going to give it all I've got and just see what I can do. And mate, hats off to Max. Well done. 1 hour 40. He just smashed his first ever half marathon. And then Ryan done 1 hour 42 as well, which is just incredible. You know, Ryan was saying at the end, he hasn't had that opportunity to have a really good training structure at the moment. You know, there's a lot of other things, as we know, with work and stuff like that. You know, but he's still been turning up to the gym. He's still been going out there for his runs. And, you know, the hard work that he's put in over the last few months is definitely paying off. He done Ballarat marathon, half marathon recently, and done an amazing time there. And then he comes to this Run Melbourne, and even without maybe the perfect training block he'd like, he still smashed it on 142. So it was amazing to see that, and amazing to have the Sweatmasters crew there. And then for Stuart, I said we didn't get a chance to catch up with him at the end, but I did see that he mentioned that during the run, around about 8 kilometers, his calf muscle was giving him that trouble again. But what an absolute warrior Stuart is. So at 8 kilometers, he's got the trouble with his calf muscle, but the guy just pushes on and still makes an incredible time. I think it was 1 hour 56. Like, still incredible time for having problems with his calf muscle. For 13 kilometers, being an absolute struggle out there, the guy smashed it, and it's great to hear that he's completed another event. As I mentioned Stuart on the podcast, you know, many episodes ago, and it's just great to hear him out there still pushing along and doing those amazing events. So it was great to have the Sweatmaster crew there. You know, it's really cool that, you know, we spend a lot of time with these guys at the gym, and to have a few Sweatmaster members there at the Run Melbourne event was really cool, and just to hear their stories as well. Say from Max doing his first ever half marathon, you know, to people like Stuart and Clara and myself doing multiple half marathons and just out there enjoying it, and then Ryan just hitting his goals. So yeah, it's amazing to have that and to share that experience with them. So Run Melbourne overall, absolute success. Really enjoyed it, and for anyone that is around Australia or wants to visit Melbourne at time, if you can brave the cold, like, for sure, Run Melbourne's a really cool event. This is a super well organised, and yeah, you get to run around the city and just really enjoy it. So yeah, highly recommended. As I say, it's an event that's really close to mine and Clara's heart, and we do enjoy running that every year. But this weekend as well, Run Melbourne's not the only event. I did put something on Instagram about some other events that are happening around the world that interest me. And the one that interests me the most is the Saucony 10K in London. Now, as I mentioned when I recorded last week's episode, we were in London. We actually went back to London and spent a little bit of time there. And when I seen the signs for the Saucony 10K, it brought back a lot of memories, because the 10K that I'd done in London was the last 10K that I'd done before my last event that I'd done before I left the UK to come to Australia. Now, back then, I don't think it was the Saucony 10K. It was probably sponsored by someone else. But yeah, I remember that very much, that I'd done that back in 2014. Just before I moved to Australia. And it kind of brought back a lot of memories. And me and Clara were talking about, it's like, oh, it's a shame that we weren't in London to do that 10K. And we obviously come back to Australia and we were doing Run Melbourne. But then we kind of had that talk about it, and we actually done kind of our own London 10K. So the Saucony 10K is about London landmarks. It's about running around and seeing as many London landmarks as you can. You know, Big Ben, I think it's Big Ben, I think it's Tower Bridge is in there, Buckingham Palace, and you've got the London Eye. You get to see all those landmarks during a beautiful 10K run. Now, so me and Clara had done our own 10K when we were there. So we couldn't quite do the Saucony 10K, but it was a Clint and Clara 10K, and we got to see the sights. But the Saucony 10K, obviously the roads are closed, and it's early in the morning, so not many people around of tourists and stuff like that. Me and Clara left a little bit later. So there's us running around Big Ben, and the crowds were just enormous, thinking that everyone's there to see it. Of course, it's an amazing sight. It's an amazing landmark. So there's us weaving and dodging through a crowd of people trying to get out for doing a 10K run. But we managed to stop and take some photos and enjoy it. And it was great to run around London. And like I mentioned before about kind of utilizing that kind of travel and running together. And, you know, I love to just go for a run wherever we visit. So it was nice to be doing that in London. And yeah, it just gives you that chance to go and see some different sites and, you know, run around a city that you might not get to run around for a while. But yeah, the Saucony 10K. So as I said, it was the last event that I'd done before I left the UK. And I remember it quite well because it was an event that I was trying to, again, push myself. I was, at that time in my life, in my running journey, it was a lot about 10K runs. I was really thinking that was my distance. I loved it. And I want to push myself to try and run faster on a 10K. And I'd done the Manchester 10K probably a few months before. So my goal was to run faster in London than I did in Manchester. And again, to kind of keep it under that 40 minutes. Now, I remember at the start of the 10K, I was running with someone from work as well, and we were quite far at the back. And as you do, we run different paces, so kind of gave them the good luck, we'll see at the finish line. And I realized at that moment I was really far at the back. There was thousands of people in front of me. So for the first 5 kilometers, it was an absolute struggle to try and get into any rhythm. I was just weaving and dodging and going through all the crowds of people to try and get into a stride. So again, not their fault. It's my fault that I was so far at the back. Everyone's out there to try and run their pace and they're enjoying it. I'm trying to just push myself a little bit quicker. But then in the last 5K, it opened up and I was able to run pretty well and get my time in the end. But it wasn't without a struggle. The last couple of kilometers, I remember I pulled one of my muscles and it was painful. I was thinking like, I don't know if I can complete this run. You know, I think maybe about at that time, maybe about 1.5 kilometers to go. I was like, you know what, Clint? You're close, you're running well, keep pushing. Now, of course, as you do, sometimes you push yourself and think, I've got there, I've done, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. The aftermath, unfortunately, is I couldn't run for a while after that, and it was, a little bit due to the injury, but it was a great run, and it is amazing to see the landmarks. So to see that run was on the same weekend as Run Melbourne, it actually kind of gave me that really cool feeling of like how special it is, that my last ever run in the UK is this weekend, and Clara's first ever run in Australia is also this weekend. And whether or not it was that, going back in 2016 when Clara had done her first 10K, or maybe not, but the fact that they happened on this weekend today was, I think, quite special. I thought it was something really cool to kind of go back into the memory bank and remember how cool that run was in London. And for anyone that has been to London, the landmarks are just impressive. It's great to be around there. And what better way than doing a 10K run around a city and seeing all the top landmarks and enjoying it. I, again, would recommend that run for sure if you're in London. 100% I'd recommend that run. So, yeah, those 2 runs this weekend. I definitely congratulate everyone who completed Run Melbourne and had fun doing it. There's some amazing stories out there, some amazing people that really just hats off to them for pushing themselves and going out there and getting a half marathon completed. It's an amazing achievement. And then also a big congratulations and best of luck to anyone running the London 10K. That is, again, an event that is super close to my heart, something that maybe one day I'll go back to run it in London. Hope to obviously run London Marathon one day, but hopefully we'll go back and maybe do the 10K as well. It's a really cool event. But before I leave the podcast, I wanted to just bring a little bit of a story about someone that I met in Iceland. Now, the reason I want to talk a little bit about this story is just because I actually thought about him a lot today on my run. So Jorg is a fantastic athlete, is someone that has done multiple marathons, and I don't want to go too much into it because I really do want to get him on the show. So I'm sure Jorg will be listening, and at some stage, Jorg, you will be on the show. I want to have a chat with you to share your story with everyone. But Jorg is not only a fantastic athlete, Jorg is probably the greatest photographer that I've ever seen on a race. He seems to know where the camera is, and he gets the best photos, race day photos I've ever seen from anyone. Now, when I look back at race day photos, I always think to myself, they look terrible. I think I look like I'm tired. I think I'm looking the other way. I'm not even looking at the camera. And I kind of just think, you know what? I'm there for running. I'm not too bothered about the photo. Maybe I might get one or two now and then. Who knows? But Jorg seems to know where the camera is, and he gets the most exceptional photos I've ever seen. So today on my run, when I was seeing the cameraman, I was thinking of Jorg, and I was making sure that I done some of his poses because I wanted to see, can I recreate how good he is? And I want to share that with Jorg, and I'm hoping that Jorg will give me the silver approval that I've done a good job. But for me, it was a really cool way of thinking about the run, and just kind of thinking, there's a camera guy here, let's try and make a funny pose, and thinking of someone else on the run as well, and someone that's, as I say, is an incredible athlete, has done some amazing things in his running journey. But honestly, his photos are just the absolute best. I'm so in awe of him, and he's just got the most amazing photos. Let's say, hopefully at some stage Jorg will come on the show and you'll get to share his story with you guys, because it is a phenomenal story. And as I mentioned, I do want to evolve the podcast. And with that, I do want to get some people on the show. And I've reached out to some people. And hopefully, over the coming months, we'll get some more people on the show. You're not only just listening to me, as much as I love to share stories about my running journey and also other people's around the world. I definitely would love to get some people and get their perspective on a few things and add them onto the show. So hopefully in the coming months, we'll add that into it. So that's it for this week. And thank you for tuning in. And as always, until next time, happy running.